Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the situation that took place in the vicinity of Poltava. As you can see, the Russians were conducting reconnaissance operation, and as a result of this reconnaissance operation, the Russians discovered the Ukrainian helicopters, ammo depot and engineering crew. And as a result of Iskander strike, both the helicopter, engineering machine, ammo depot were destroyed. This is not the first video of the same type that we received during the previous 24-48 hours. For example, a day ago, the Russian sources published the video of the same type, but from the town from the vicinity of the town by the name of Mirgorod. In this video, for example, we can see another airfield, but with squadron of Su-27s, and the Russians, as a result of Iskander strike, managed to destroy the entire squadron. So as you can see, the same reconnaissance group is operating in this area. This is a very important area for the Ukrainians because there are two military airfields that Ukrainians are using to, let's say, to support their forces in the vicinity of Kharkiv, Volchansk and Liptsi. Now let's move to the situation on the ground, and let's start from Staromayorsk-Urozhaynaya direction. As you can see, we have adjusted the map. The Russians during the previous 24 hours published the video of how they managed to improve their positions from Staromayorsk towards the village by the name of Makarovka. This information was also confirmed by different mappers. In this video, for example, we can see the results and the way how the Russians were storming the tree lines and the fortifications. We see the Russian stormtroopers entering this tree line and starting clearing this tree line from Ukrainian soldiers. So basically the Russians were moving from the south in direction of this tree line, and when they entered the tree line they began moving further in the eastern direction with the purpose to clear this territory. For now we don't know for sure whether the Russians managed to reach these farms or not, but most likely this is exactly the target and the main objective, that was the main objective of that operation. Now let's move further in direction of South Donetsk area. We have additional updates in the vicinity of Ugledar. According to pro-Ukrainian mappers, the Russians managed to improve their positions and capture additional tree lines and fortifications between the village of Volodymyrovka and Vodyana. So this is approximately the progress of the armed forces of Russian Federation during the previous 24-48 hours. As you can see, significant progress. The Russians, the most important, managed to reduce the distance between the edge Russian positions and the main supply road of I-24 itself for 3.15 kilometers just in this direction. I'll remind you that this territory is under responsibilities of 72nd Mechanized Brigade. So the Russians are moving along the entire line of combat contact, starting from Pavlovka to Paraskovyevka. Now let's move further in direction of Krasnogorovka. According also to pro-Ukrainian sources, the Russians managed to establish complete control over the western part of the village and to capture these farms. According to information we have, now the Russians had the window of opportunities to move further in the western direction towards the next defense belt, towards the next stronghold that located further in the north and northwestern direction, and this is also something like a farms. So the Russians probably will try to attack in this direction as well, with the purpose to establish fire control or even physical control over the main supply roads that goes from, let's say, the mainland towards Krasnogorovka itself. And of course the Russians will continue offensive in the northern and northwestern direction inside of the city. Now let's move further in direction of Yasnobrodovka. According to information that we received from different mappers, the Russians captured additional tree line, or more precisely the intersections of this tree line in Karlovka-Yasnobrodovka direction. So basically, if this information is correct, the Ukrainians lost any of supply roads they had before, and from now on the Ukrainians who are currently, if there are Ukrainians who are currently located in this area, are encircled or at least under complete fire and artillery control or even physical control. Now let's move further in direction of Progress, Velika Novoselovka, Novoselovka-Persh, and many other towns and settlements in this direction. According to pro-Ukrainian mappers, the Russians managed to improve their positions further in the western direction on the line between Cheretin and Progress. And as a result of offensive, the Russians captured additional tree lines, fortifications, and the fields. So currently the distance between the edge Russian positions and the village of Progress itself is less than less than 1.5 kilometers. So it's already a distance of tank fire or even of mortar fire control. Furthermore, we got additional batch of the videos of how the Russians were hunting and attacking the Ukraine armored vehicles that the Ukrainians tried to evacuate from Novoselov-Kapersha towards the mainland. But all those attempts failed, and the Russians during the previous night destroyed few more armored vehicles in this direction. Also, we got confirmation about Russian progress in the northern part of Novoselov-Kapersha. We just discussed this information yesterday, and today different mappers confirmed it. Now let's move further in direction of Toretsk, New York agglomeration. And according to information updates we got during the previous night, this is one of the most active area, and this is the area where the Russians gained the biggest, managed to get the biggest results probably for the previous week or something like this. According to information we have, the Russians broke through the Ukrainian defense belt on the line Novoselovka, New York, and as a result of offensive, the Russians captured around 40% of the town by the name of New York, and also the Russians captured around 60-70% of the village by the name of Yurivka. So obviously this is significant progress of the armed forces of Russian Federation. This information was confirmed by pro-Ukrainian mappers. For now we don't have any other updates, something like video geolocations or something like this, so let's wait a bit. But if this information is correct, then the Ukrainians have significant problems in this area. Basically, the Ukrainians don't have enough of forces for the stabilization of the line of combat contact. As for Pivnichne, Druzhba, Toretsk agglomeration, we got additional updates. First of all, the Russians are trying to bypass and to encircle the Ukrainians in the citadel in this area, trying to attack from the southwestern direction, something like this. Furthermore, we got additional video from the area of Druzhba, from the village of Druzhba. The Russian sources published the video of how they were attacking the Ukrainian positions after successful pipeline operation. I'll remind that Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation a few days ago reported that the Russians, using another pipeline operation, managed to break through the Ukrainian defense belt and to attack the Ukrainians from behind. And today probably we got details about the operation, probably the last part, the final part of the operation, when the Russians, after the breakthrough, managed to improve their position significantly. Based on the geolocation, we have adjusted the map, and on this video, if you have access to the map, we can see the movements of the Russian forces in the vicinity of the pulp station, the video of how the Russians entered Druzhba Pivnichne itself, destroyed tank, and how the Russians were bombing the Ukrainian positions along Zaliznichna Street. So significant progress in this area as well, and this video confirms that the Russians also do have some plans to attack the Ukrainians using this road. So for now, we see at least a very big possibility of creation of two cauldrons. The first cauldron is the Ukrainian citadels inside of Pivnichne Toretsk agglomeration, and the second cauldron is New York itself. Now let's move further and let's talk a little bit about Chasiv Yar itself. If you remember, yesterday we talked and we got the video that the Russians, as a result of very heavy clashes, established complete control over the most western part of the eastern Chasiv Yar. In this video we can see the Russians waving their flags inside of the building that used to be under Ukrainian control at least 2-3 days ago. Now we have additional confirmation about complete control by the Russians of the territory. This information was also confirmed by the pro-Ukrainian mappers. So the Russians managed to establish control along the entire line of Seversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal. During the next few days, they will try to improve their positions in the northern direction and in the southern direction, and after that, the Russians will start thinking how to move further and to establish complete control over the central and the western Chasiv Yar. Now let's talk about Siversk direction. We have additional updates in the vicinity of Razdolovka. The Russian sources published the video of how they were storming and attacking the Ukrainian positions in the vicinity of the village. Probably the video is archived, and this video shows us how the Russians were storming and capturing this territory before the beginning of Razdolovka offensive operation. Now let's move further in direction of Makeyevka. During the previous few days we talked a lot about the village. The Russians managed to break through the Ukrainian defense belt belt in this area and to semi-encircle Makeivka from the south and from the north. Basically, the Russians cut the main supply roads, and now the Ukrainians who are currently located in the village are encircled. Maybe they still have possibilities to redeploy their forces using through Zhiribets River. This is not very big river, but anyway, I believe that this territory is already covered with significant number of FPV drones, and the Ukrainians who are there basically stuck in the basements and the buildings. We understand that Ukrainians don't have possibilities to conduct a counter-offensive to unblock these Ukrainians, so most likely these soldiers, Ukrainian soldiers, either will surrender or will stay there forever. So very important updates, and most likely another important thing that during the next few days the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation will give us additional updates about complete control over this territory. As for northern Kupiansk direction, the Russian sources reported about significant number of Ukrainians who surrendered during the previous few days, and mainly those soldiers belong to 144th Infantry Brigade that was created recently by the Ukrainians and basically was formed by newly mobilized soldiers. Currently, this is the biggest problem for the Ukrainians. They have more or less stable supply and support from the Western countries. They have a very big army, but the problem is when this big army face the Russian soldiers, they begin surrendering immediately. Now let's move further in Kupiansk direction. We have lots of very interesting updates from this territory as well. The Russians continue publishing additional videos of how they are hunting and attacking and bombing the Ukraine command centers, communication equipment in this direction using different types of weapons, including FAB 3000 and FAB 1500, just artillery strikes, and many other types of weapons. As a result of this strike, the Russians destroyed, as you can see, communication equipment. Very important updates are coming from Volchansk itself. According to information we have, Zelensky sent Syrsky personally to Volchansk with the purpose to stabilize the situation and probably to organize counter-offensive operation and to return control over Volchansk itself. Currently, Syrsky is located in this area, but we understand that most likely he is not able to do anything in this direction. As for Volchansk itself, we got additional updates from the Group of Forces North. They published additional posts, additional analysis about the situation during the previous 24 hours. And for the first time, the Group of Forces North confirmed control at least over one building in the citadel. According to geolocations we received during the previous days, the Russians established complete control over 3 high-rise buildings in this area, but the Group of Forces North confirmed just control over one building. And as I understand, the Russians controlled just the building along Soborno Street. Currently, there are very heavy clashes, but for now without any changes on the ground. The most important update is coming from the territory to the east from Burgovatka. As you can see, we have adjusted the map because today the Group of Forces North for the second day in a row confirmed report about additional progress and creation of a foothold on the Ukrainian side of Seversky Donetsk River. According to the Russians, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians managed to dig in deeper on the Ukrainian side of Seversky Donetsk River. They managed to concentrate additional forces and to improve their positions for another 50 meters deep inside of the Ukrainian territory. So most likely the Russians are concentrating their forces in this area and they're preparing and collecting the critical mass for further offensive in direction of Prilipka. So this is very interesting situation. So as I understand, the Russians are planning to attack the Ukrainians from the western flank towards southern Vovchansk, which will lead to complete collapse and even to encirclement of the Ukrainians in this area. During the previous months, the Russians were preparing this operation. They were concentrating their forces, and maybe something big is going to happen during the next few days. As for Liptsy, we haven't received anything important. Now let's talk about a little bit about Zolochiv direction. During the previous days we discussed that according to some sources the Russians captured the village of Sotnitsky Kazachok, and today we got the video of how the Russians were bombing Ukrainian positions further in the southern direction from this village. Most likely this is something like artillery preparation before possible further offensive with the purpose to establish complete control over additional tree line and the fortifications in this area. Now let's talk about political events. We have additional updates from Belarus. According to information we have, there was a prisoners exchange process between Belarus and Ukraine. The sources are saying that Belarus sent the spy or a sabotage soldier, a special agent from Belarus who in 2023 destroyed A-50 airplane in the airfields of Machulishi. That was a special operation conducted by pro-Ukrainians, by Ukrainian intelligence service. This spy was sent to Ukraine, and Ukrainians sent 2 priests to Belarus, and of course then Belarus sent them back to Russia. So 1 spy was exchanged for 2 priests from Ukraine. Also, the president of Belarus continue, let's say, escalating or warming the situation between Ukraine and Belarus. He said that if it's necessary, Belarus will strike Ukraine immediately if any threat or any aggression will come from this territory. So, of course, today is the Independence Day in the Belarus, so it's very important holiday for this country, and so that's why maybe all these things, all these talks about the concentration, escalation along the border was just something like media PR actions before this great holiday for this country. Anyway, we'll see what is going to be next. Also, we got additional updates from the United States of America, more precisely from Donald Trump, and today we got more and more reports that according to Politico, if elected, Trump may refuse NATO expansion to the east and withdraw security guarantees for alliance countries spending less than 2% of GDP on defense. So Ukrainians have already started preparation for Trump election, and all these talks about possible peace agreement is the part of this preparations. But I'll remind you that yesterday, when Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, arrived in Ukraine and proposed Ukrainian ceasefire, Zelensky rejected any plan. So that means, from the other hand, we see that Zelensky continue escalation and continue developing the situation of war with Russia. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.